Today we are here to wrap up my reading for the month of February, and yeah, it's a weird, I'm in kind of a weird headspace, and I don't have a lot of spoons today, so I think we're gonna try to keep this pretty snappy, because also you guys have seen a lot of these books, like you've seen me talk about a lot of these books because I did several blogging projects in February, so yeah, I think this is really going to be about hitting some highlights. February was it was a good reading month, but honestly, like, it's hard for me to even remember. I've had a lot going on at work, which I think will be slowing down a little bit. But between that and then I'm having some mental health things going on, which, yeah, I think are on their way to being better. But, whenever you change meds, it's a little, whatever. And, so like when I think back to February, I know I enjoyed a lot of these things that I read, but I think I was not fully present. I had a lot of doctor's appointments. I had 2 different visitors, so that always takes, wonderful, but takes a lot out of me. And it was a full month. I also was knitting a ton and sort of like enjoying the dissociative element of knitting. I finished my first sweater. I'm so proud. Isn't it beautiful? It's not perfect, but I made it with my own 2 hands, and it is very cozy and snuggly, so we'll call that a win. Yeah, so all that being said, I think let's keep it to the highlights today, and I will make sure to link you to videos to get more details for when I was like more present, because I feel like if I try to get into some of these too much, it's just not going to be that interesting. So with that being said, I'm enticing you to watch this video. I feel like I'm very much underselling this. We'll hit the highlights, don't worry. But so in terms of stats, I'll just hit, overview here. You can see and pause if you want to look in more detail. I know that I read 25 books. I think I read about 7,500 pages. So I only read a fewer number of books this month in January, but I think I read like 2,500 fewer pages. I read a lot of graphic novels this month. I also had some audio going on to help me with things, but yeah, I read a pretty high number of books, but not as meaty of books. And let's see, what other highlights? My most frequently read genre was fantasy. Last month it was fantasy and speculative romance, so, not that surprising. And you can see that I had really good ratings. I didn't have anything under a 2.5, and I think my average was 3.71, so that's pretty great. I feel like I was really moving and grooving in terms of reading a lot of things I really love. The projects that I take on in February now do lend themselves to that, particularly the reading booktubers favorites from my TBR challenge. That last year was a big success and was also this year in terms of reading things I liked. So yeah, that's just a good strategy for me to make sure I'm reading things I'm enjoying. Anyway, I read a lot. I'll show you guys all the books I read for projects. It was a lot of buddy reads or challenges or vlogging projects. That was a good chunk of what I read in addition to ARCs. So yeah, I think that's a good overview. Speaking of ARCs, the 2 that I'll mention here before we get into categories or like superlatives, I will just give you an overview because I don't have a lot to say about either other than I just enjoyed them. They were really well done, well written, and good versions of her, but it definitely won't be the last because I really liked her writing. I would describe this as horror mystery. So it is based on horror traditions or like a folklore in Sri Lanka, which is where the book is set. And it was just really well done. It's a little on the nose and a little predictable. So it has sort of a mystery component of, this woman is trying to investigate these deaths on the island, and, the local townspeople are trying to blame her dad because he's a witch doctor. I think, isn't he, or a shaman? He practices traditional medicine in their indigenous religion. And so a lot of people are accusing him of these crimes. So she's trying to investigate to find out what really happened. Definitely would recommend looking up some content warnings on this one. It does get pretty intense in terms of some of the things that happen in the backstory or in the current story, but I just thought that it was, you know, thematically I enjoyed it. It felt sort of like it was exploring some of the territory of things fall apart in terms of sort of Christian religion versus indigenous religion, or yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really well done. It was entertaining, well written, interesting themes. So 4 stars, definitely recommend. And I also definitely recommend Murder. She writes the kind of supernatural thrillers that I like, and they have kind of an underlying optimism to her perspective that I appreciate. She's not coming from sort of a cynical, hard-bitten place. There is an underlying kind of belief in the ability to, like, triumph, I guess, or it just doesn't have the sort of cynicism that I get a little bored with in thrillers. So yeah, this one is sort of playing on an urban folk tale legend, like urban legend thing of like the serial killer killing hitchhikers who get lost out in the country, and our main couple, who are our protagonists, get kind of embroiled in it when they're on their way driving to their honeymoon, and things unfold. So it's well written, as always. It's not like one of her very best, but I found it well written and very entertaining, which is what I go to her for. She is very reliable in that respect. So those were the arcs. Now let's get into superlatives, shall we? So biggest achievement is Loving Jack by Nora Roberts, because it represents the fact that I am now officially halfway through Nora Roberts' oeuvre. Pause for applause. Whew. So I will be doing a live stream to kind of talk about how things have gone so far and where we're at. I didn't love Loving Jack because it kind of had sort of like a Manic Pixie Dream Girl type element, but damn it if Nora Roberts doesn't just write things I enjoy reading. They're just such nice palette cleansers, even these 80s contemporaries that I'm, you know, kind of making my way through as a part of this. Even when I don't love them, they are a really nice palette cleanser and a way to pass the time, so long as they don't get too of their time in terms of sort of like manhandling and dated misogyny. And then I DNF the other one that's in this collection, which is called Best Laid Plans. They're kind of like companion stories because it's some of the same characters. I wasn't invested. I was bored with the 2 main characters, so if I'm bored with the characters, there's really no reason to keep reading for this kind of book for me. So, but anyway, this is my biggest achievement because I'm halfway through reading Roberts. Eventually we will get there. I have not been reading a lot of her kind of chunkier standalones in a while, and I do need to make some progress on those. I've been kind of knocking off a lot of the easy to get through contemporaries. In terms of another category, most successful outing with a new author, I'm going to give to Cat Sebastian. If you want to see my full thoughts about this book, check out my vlog, Reading Booktubers Favorites, but this was just an absolute delight. It was what I needed. It was a really good palette cleanse, and I just am very excited to try more from Cat Sebastian. I read one of her books way back in the day, but I was a completely different person with completely different taste, so I kind of don't count that. This is a redo with us. I'm gonna give most uncomfortable to Tell Me I'm Worthless. Again, I talk about this book in that vlog, so I will mostly point you there. But if you want to read something that is really challenging in a very edifying way, this is a horror novel centered around, as the author puts in the content warning, transphobia and fascism. So it's very heavy, but I found this to be very worthwhile and very impactful. So it made me the most uncomfortable, but in a very edifying way. Let's break it up from that vlog, because there's a lot of the books we have to talk about are from that vlog. And let's go with coziest. So we talked about most uncomfortable. Let's talk about the most comfy, the coziest. And that is How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. This Oh my gosh, I thought I was going to give this a 4.5 or a 5 star at first. It's not quite that, but if it just felt like an episode of Midsummer Murders in a book. And it was cozy without being cutesy. And if you guys watch this channel, you know that as always, my struggle is I'm looking for something cozy, but often it gets a little twee, a little cutesy, and that's not always what I want in a mystery. And this was not that. And I think it's the beginning of a series, so I will definitely look out for the next one. The setup for this, oh, this is an advanced copy. I believe this is coming out in March, by the way, so you should be able to read this soon. The setup for this is that our main character is a great grandniece of this woman who, when she was a teenager, had her fortune told that someday she was going to be murdered. And since then, homegirl has been on like high alert. She is on the lookout, trying to figure out who is going to murder her. And she has like dedicated her life to that. She married into this really rich family, so she had a lot of money, and she passes away unexpectedly right before the grandniece was supposed to go down and meet her for the first time. And the meeting was in the context of her becoming her great aunt's main beneficiary. So, you know, that's suspicious, that's weird. And when she gets there, you know, a lot of shenanigans ensue. She realizes that there's been murder, and so she's trying to figure out who did it. But she has all of this information that her great aunt has been storing over the years, and like, she has dirt on people. And I think that's what the subsequent books are going to be about, is like her other investigations and like the side tangents she went on, which I think would be fun. But it's just fun. It's a fun murder mystery. I guess nothing revolutionary, but the tone really worked for me. And it just felt very comfy, very cozy, and just like what I needed. So I really enjoyed that one and would definitely recommend to people who like a murder mystery. That's coming out in March, and I'm planning on continuing in the series. So we'll see if it's just like a one book wonder or not, but that one book definitely really worked for me. Okay, and then my last superlative I'm gonna say is the most disorienting, and that is Leech by Huron Inez. I really enjoyed this, and broken record, once again, this is in that vlog of booktubers, reading booktubers favorites, so you can go there to see the full deal. But I gave this 4.5 stars because it's a horror mystery where the writing itself and the structure of the book itself is so purposely disorienting, which is so hard to pull off in a way that's satisfying, and I think this one really did. And I just love, it's like the writing and the structure of the story itself is kind of a puzzle on top of the mystery, which I just think is really fun. So it's a debut, which is very impressive, and I enjoyed the hell out of this. So yeah, this was great. I think this month I don't particularly have a least favorite and least recommended. Like, I could arbitrarily pull the ones that were technically the lowest, but I don't have any, like, it's not with prejudice, so I don't really feel like getting into that. So I will say my most recommended is one that you have not seen in any vlog, so I can actually talk about this a little bit more. And that is the graphic novel adaptation of Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4.5 stars, and I really enjoyed this project, or like this experience, I guess, of reading the graphic novelization of a well-known, well-loved novel, like of a classic. So I know some people routinely experience classics in this way. You know, I think that's been a trend in publishing for the last 20 years or whatever, is adapting, you know, really well-known stories or well-known novels into graphic novel form, particularly in the context of for the classroom. But it's not something I've experienced myself, even amidst that being a trend. And the reason I decided to do this, well, a couple things. One, I'm trying to get better about reading and talking about graphic novels, because I think they're a really valuable type of reading that maybe don't get the time, respect, attention they deserve. And, you know, I think I could do a better job of exploring them and reading them more. And also, Kindred was a book from Octavia Butler. I had already heard like what the plot was. Like this wouldn't spoil that book for me if I decided to pick it up in the future, because I kind of already knew what happened. And based on knowing what happened, I did not think that this would be a book I would read, just because it has some of the things that are really difficult for me to read. So it would have to be a very specific convergence of factors for me to eventually pick it up. But I thought that in graphic novel form, if we got to those parts, I could kind of skip them a little bit easier. And also, just because of the nature of it being a graphic novel, I think it didn't linger in some of those things. I'll just let you look up the content warnings if you want to know what I'm alluding to, but like, it didn't linger in them in the same way it would if you were in the headspace of a character on the page. So with that in mind, this was the perfect way for me to experience this story, because it is such a powerful story, and yeah, something that really stuck with me, and really, yeah, it was very impactful. I also loved, as a graphic novel, its use of color I thought was really interesting. I thought the way that it moved action through the pages was very effective. Give you a little sense. It's not like it's like super elaborate, super beautiful drawings. It's more just like the way that they set. I feel like I'm not the best person to talk about what makes graphic novels good. Go watch Ashley's, what is it? It's not Bookish Realm, it's Comics Realm. I'll try to remember what it is and I'll link it. But she is very good at talking about graphic novels and manga and all of that in a way that's a more meaningful review than what I could provide to you, because that is just not my strong suit. But as a novice, as somebody just experiencing it, I found it really impactful. And I thought that, like I said, the color bit in particular was very purposeful and interesting in this. And this is a really, there's a reason it's a classic. There's a reason why it's a masterpiece. I still don't know that I'm up to reading the full book of this, but I'm very glad that I got to experience the story, and I would really recommend it if you were looking for kind of hard-hitting graphic novel. If you are, like me, intrigued by the concept of a graphic novelization of a classic novel, any of that, I would really recommend this. And yeah, it was great. And then my favorite, take a shot. We're talking about that vlog again. Hopefully you haven't been doing that, because you will be messed up by this time in the video. But Yellowface by R.F. Kuang was my favorite book of the month. And that's just because this kind of has it all. Like, I really was into the plot. It was page turning. It had a lot to say. It was satire, and it made me laugh. Humor is very subjective, but I found it very funny. I liked the writing. Like, this was just great. It was a book for me, and I'm glad I ended up falling on the side of being one of the people who really liked this, because I know that wasn't everyone's experience, but it was mine. So, a little more to the point version of this kind of video for me. Hopefully you guys will bear with me while I'm kind of getting myself sorted out, but definitely let me know how your reading went in February. Let me know if you've read any of the things I talked about, and yeah, I think that'll do it for me. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you're so inclined, even though I'm not on there very much. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. Hope you're having an absolutely lovely day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!